something that I really admire about my parents is they were not big on technology. They were very like, get your ass outside and play something, climb a tree. And so my favorite memories were always being outside. I was climbing trees. I was annoying my brothers. I was riding my bike.
Welcome to Vulnerability Muscle, the empowering podcast challenging norms and guiding you to find strength and power through vulnerability. I'm your host, Reggie D. Ford. In a world that often portrays vulnerability as a sign of weakness, I believe it is a source of tremendous strength and authenticity. Through insightful conversations and thought provoking interviews, Vulnerability Muscle aims to redefine vulnerability and help listeners develop a new perspective on their own lives. Each episode of Vulnerability Muscle delves into a variety of topics such as mental health, social issues, and mindset shifts. We explore the power of vulnerability in healing, building resilience, and promoting personal growth, as well as fostering meaningful connections. This podcast provides practical tools and strategies to navigate life's challenges, overcome adversity, and create more inclusive and just environments for all people. Kathleen, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Reggie?
I'm great. I'm great. Do me a favor and introduce yourself, however you want to introduce yourself to the people.
Okay. Well, I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I'm really passionate about mental health and theology. I'm a student. I'm also a teacher. I teach preschool, so I have 9 2-year-olds. Um, yeah, it's crazy. Um, yeah, I'm a lot of things, but I'm also just a lifelong learner and someone who's forever curious about my own life and the lives of others.
That's beautiful. I love that. And I cannot wait to get into more of who you are and what you bring to this world. But first, I want to hop into some rapid response questions. So the first
Okay, let's
thing that
do it.
comes to mind, you let me know, okay?
Okay.
What is one thing you do to relax when you're feeling stressed?
Go outside.
Go outside.
hmm
Yes,
No matter what the weather is,
I
because
like
here in
that.
Texas we have some crazy weather, and even if I'm outside in the snow or the freezing cold, I feel more connected to myself.
That's dope. I like that. What comes to mind when you hear the word vulnerability?
Courage, bravery,
Yes, I like that too.
uh, sounds also scary.
Mm,
All those
yeah,
things together.
nice. If at any moment, any point, any time you get scared or feel that this conversation is too much, I hope you let me know. And I hope
hmm
that you feel comfortable with everything that you share. And if ever there's a point that you don't, please just let me know and we will back out of that. Okay.
Will do.
All right. And last one, what is one of your favorite childhood memories?
Um, so I grew up in a really, really beautiful area on the central coast of California, and we were outside a lot. Something that I really admire about my parents is they were not big on technology. They were very like, get your ass outside and play something, climb a tree. Um, and so my favorite memories were always being outside. I was climbing trees. I was annoying my brothers. I was riding my bike. Um, yeah. I'm sensing a theme here. I think I like to
Hey,
be
that's what I was
outside.
just saying. That's what I was just
Yeah.
gonna say. Is being outside seems to fulfill you in a way. That's amazing.
hmm
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad to be having this conversation because we met through a very life-changing moment in my life for sure. And I don't want to speak for you, but it was fantastic. And that was at Onsite through a retreat. Centered around trauma and grief and everything, and it was life-changing for me. How was it for you?
Life changing for sure. Yeah. I don't know if it's like this for you, but on-site is so hard to describe.
Mhm.
It's like just so hard to pinpoint like what it is that we did there and the significance of it. But yeah, I had been a fan of Onsite like leading up to me going. So I came like ready.
Mm.
Um, and it ended up being even better than my expectations. It was amazing.
That's crazy
Um,
because I had no idea what Onsite was, and it was probably a couple weeks before our retreat that, I got approached by the director of the foundation who was like, "We have these
mm,
scholarships available, and I know you're on your healing journey. I think this would be great for you." And so I go to
wow.
the website and I'm looking it up, and it's like the word that stood out to me was unstuck. Come here and feel
Mm,
unstuck or get unstuck. And at that period in time, I think it was late 2022. Yeah,
yeah,
I was like, I felt stuck. And so
yeah.
I was like, this is speaking directly to me. So let me figure this out and like get to California and do this. So I was,
Mhm.
and oh my God, am I so glad that I did. It was amazing.
Yeah, I forget how I heard about Onsite. It might have been through my therapist.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I think it was through my therapist. He really appreciated their work. Um, and I started listening to their podcast, Living Centered. And yeah, I just was learning a lot. And I was like, man, if I could ever go, but like I couldn't afford it. Um, so I called them one day and I was like, do you guys do like scholarships or something? And they're like, yeah, they're really hard to get, but let me put your name on a list.
Mm.
So, and then they emailed me, I think a year later about
Wow.
the, yeah, about the trip that was open in San Diego. So,
Wow, that's
yeah,
amazing. That's
I
amazing.
yeah,
You one, you self-advocated and you picked up the phone and you called because you knew that it was something that you wanted. But
uh-huh.
to for it to be a whole year later, I'm sure you forgot all about that call. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I was so I'll never forget the day that I got that email when she emailed me and said that she has a spot for me, and I was like, "What? Oh my gosh!" And it was like pretty soon. I think it was just like you said, like within a few weeks.
mhm.
Um, so I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, Jake, you got the kids. See ya."
It's one of those things that you definitely like you pause life, like everything in
Yeah.
life, you're like, I gotta do this for me. And for people
Mhm.
who are like listening to us and don't know what the hell we're talking about,
Mhm.
Onsite is this curated therapeutic retreat company. I don't know. They have retreats in Tennessee and then another location in outside of San Diego, California, and they have a ton of very specialized therapists who work with groups and individuals and couples and team and like organizations and teams on healing different pain points in their lives. And so the program that we did was called Living Centered, and again, like the word that stuck out to me about that program was unstuck. I don't know if there was
Mhm.
anything particular about Living Centered or the one we did that stuck out to you, or if you were just curious about going. But that's a little bit about on site. It's based in Tennessee, but it's a fantastic organization that has been life changing to us and so many other people.
Yeah, and I think another thing to add with onsite, when we're explaining it is what makes them different from just going to like normal therapy. Um, is one, you're away from
Mhm.
your family, your friends. They take your phone, and there's like an emergency number, so you're off the grid, but you also know that you can be contacted if needed, which was important to me because I have kids. But then also they use experiential modalities in their therapy practices. So Reggie and I did something called psychodrama,
Mhm.
um, which I had never experienced before. And I think that was part of the magic of Onsite, honestly, because it gave me psychodrama is this way that you kind of explore your story and your trauma by doing I don't know, Reggie, like role playing and sometimes
Yeah.
props. And then the other people that you're with. Um, it's hard to explain, but I don't know, there's some sort of magic in it because it I left exactly like what you said, feeling so, unstuck and
Mhm.
more connected to myself, and then also just I felt belonging that I
Mhm.
hadn't felt in I forever. It
Yeah.
was amazing.
Definitely. And the psychodrama, you're bringing back all the terms now. It's experiential
Mhm.
therapy and everything. So yeah, psychodrama, it felt like you're the main character in this
Yeah.
production, like you are, and the different people, it's group therapy. So the different people in the group are playing characters in your life. Maybe your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, whomever it is, and primarily in your immediate family, right?
Mhm.
The family that you grew up with because of that impact on who we become as adults, who we become in shaping our personality, the way that we respond to different things in our lives, and really working through some difficult things.
Yeah.
And I mean, like it was I think the part that was really cool for me was just being able to pick somebody to be your inner child and
Mm.
and then pick somebody to play whomever may be. But the cool part about psychodrama, I thought that was really helpful for me was the role reversal. So like
Yes.
I'd be me and you'd be my mom, and then it'd
Mhm.
be like switch roles. And so
Yeah.
now
Oh,
I have to put myself in your shoe, in my mom's
yeah.
shoes, talking to me or thinking from her perspective, and it just opens up a whole another level of empathy and understanding of different perspectives.
Yes. Yeah, and then I think also being able to, like, because it's a group, um, being able to witness other people's stories and seeing how that relates to your own, it feels very connecting. Like,
Mm,
wow, our stories are different, but we're also very similar. We have more in
yeah.
common than I thought. My group was all women.
Mhm.
So, and you could look at us and be like, well, you guys would never hang out outside of Onsite. But then we got to know each other and like, wow, we really have a lot in common.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I thought that that was really impactful too.
Yeah. That spoke to one of my not fears, but kind of concerns going into on-site was that as a black man, I walked in there.
Mhm.
There's no any other black men. There's no black male therapist. There's no black therapist. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
what am I gonna get from this? Like, what is the point of relatability that's going to help me get my story out and be understood in the way that I feel it needs to be? And our therapist in our room, and there were 3 men in my room and 5 women. She spoke to it directly and was hoping that she could break through those barriers and get to the human level of it all. And I think
Hmm.
that's the part that I really saw was, after the first day, it wasn't about my story as a black man. It wasn't about this person's story as a white man or white woman or whatever it may be. It was like we are people who have experienced life and
Yeah.
experience, with our group, just the harsh realities of life
Hmm.
and the way that it impacts our brains and the way that we develop and the way that we respond to things is a human thing.
Yes.
It may be racism for me and it may
Hmm.
be bullying or whatever it may have been for you, but the way that our bodies and minds respond to that are going to be similar. And
Yeah.
so it was addressing those aspects of the human experience, which I really appreciated. And it did break through the barriers that I felt were, a big concern for me.
Yeah. And I mean, I really brought it with me. Like, I
Hmm.
feel like I carry that experience and what I learned with me every day.
Hmm.
Like it
Absolutely.
just completely changed me.
Yeah. Yeah. I can like it's wild, like looking at people, even like one thing I say about this podcast is that I wanted to humanize the headline. Right? So
Mm,
whether it be the murderer, the rapist, the convicted this, that, and that, like humanizing that headline by telling the story of how that person became the person that we see in the headline,
Yeah.
right? And I think anytime I see people or hear people's stories or see something that they've done or been through, it's like, damn, like that we got to go to the backstory because
Mhm.
walking into Onsite and seeing y'all like one of the guys that were in there, I was like, he's a plant. I know he's a plant because he doesn't belong here, and I don't believe he's here. But like, I got to learn his story and really
Yeah.
dig in, and like, damn, like we are all here to heal some deep wound that we've experienced,
Mhm.
and you can't truly judge a book. You can't judge a book by its cover at all, and that was really helpful in being able to see.
Yeah, and it's also such an important life lesson too, just realizing that we have to um, go back in
Mm,
order to go forward.
mm.
We can't just expect to continue to grow and heal if we're not ready to, yeah, talk about the way our upbringing or childhood, whatever, or even adolescent stuff affects us now to this day.
Definitely. What was some of your preparation, and I say preparation loosely, like what were some of the therapies and the things that you had done prior to going to on-site to make you feel like you were, prepared for that experience?
Yeah, I don't think I was prepared. um, but to answer your question, I had been in therapy um, for about 2 years, I think, at that point. I'd been doing maintenance work with my therapist and mainly just checking in if something was coming up. Um, but I was seeing him weekly, gosh, for 6 months to a year, and then once a month. We did EMDR, which was super helpful for me.
Can you
Um,
explain EMDR?
yeah, I could try to. Um, it is a therapeutic modality that uses, well, my therapist used these little like things that you hold in your hand
Mm.
that vibrate right, left. And he's the one that's doing it. And I I think the science behind it has to do with right brain, left brain, and eye movement. And so there was this, I think it was a psychologist who had trauma, and she was processing through it as she was walking through the forest, and she was looking at the different trees as she was walking. And she realized after that she felt better. So she started doing all these tests to see, okay, well, what is behind this? And I think it's similar to, if you go to bed at night and you're just like something like really bothers you or you had a bad day or something, you wake up in the morning and you feel better. Kind of it has to do with like your brain and how it processes and REM sleep and all of that.
Mm.
Um, so the idea is that you are kind of opening your memories like a filing cabinet. You're taking out certain ones in the safe container of like the therapeutic relationship, and you're taking out certain ones and seeing what comes up while you're also holding these whatever vibrating things. And so your brain is doing right brain, left brain stuff. Um, and so there's something to it about, and similar to psychodrama, where you're processing your trauma now as an adult and with a therapist. Um, that is super, super healing. Um, I mean, that's my very dumbed down
Yeah,
explanation of
no,
it,
that's
but
good.
it was
That's good.
very helpful for me. I will say, if anyone ever looks into doing it, I think it's really important that you have a really good relationship with your therapist, because
Definitely.
you get really vulnerable. And there were times I was sitting in the, on the therapy couch feeling like I was 10-year-old Kathleen, and I felt very small and vulnerable. And it was really, really hard. And then you like leave and go to work. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
okay, I don't know what to do now. Like it's hard to come back to reality.
True, true. I've
So,
experienced EMDR as well, and so it stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And so
mhm,
it's like you said, it's activating the right and left sides of your brain. It can be done in multiple different ways, as you described, like with the buzzing, the vibrating things
mhm,
that you had. Mine were multiple, like looking right to
mhm.
left, for a series, and then also tapping. So tapping right, left, right, left, right, left. But that
Oh,
bilateral activation of the brain really opens you up. Like I love how you said it, like opening up a file cabinet.
mhm.
And um I think it's something that even EMDR is something to build up to with the relationship
Yeah,
with your therapist, because as you mentioned, like the level of vulnerability and the openness that you get to, it can really take you back to places where you don't even know your mind can go.
yeah.
And it can be frightening, it can be terrifying. But it is also like that, going back and touching those places as an adult, as a more healed version of who you are, allows you to then reprocess those things so that you can come out of it in a healthier way. And
Mhm.
so, like, I think, like, for me, there are several core memories that I did EMDR around, and I'm thinking, like, these things and the way that I think about these things and the way that they have impacted the way that I think about related things are gonna be
Yeah.
with me forever. Like, I'm like, "You're not
Mhm.
like, this is not going to change because I feel so strong about them." And I think the first memory that I processed, which was tough, it was around trust, it was around relationship with my parents, and I was like, this is not going to change. And within 7 sessions of EMDR, it like things just changed. And I was like, wait.
Wow.
And I was like, wait a minute. No, like it can't be
How'd
like,
that happen? Yeah.
yeah, and it was crazy. And so, like, it's a modality I definitely love and lean on, and
Mhm.
I bring it back to my therapy sessions every now and again, between just depending on what I wanna process and what I feel will be helpful, and EMDR is one of those things. Is there
Mhm.
anything else that you had done before that?
Um, yeah, well, something that came up a lot, at Onsite was really how, codependent I was at
Mhm,
the time. And so even getting to the mental space where like I joked about earlier, like, "Okay, Jake, you got the kids." I think a year prior to that, I wouldn't have been able to do that.
mhm.
I would have been, like, just so worried about them, worried about him. I That's something from my childhood where I think I have always just put others' needs first. So, yeah, that working on that, I feel like it really like hit its peak at Onsite.
Mhm.
Um, but it made it so the work that I had done going into it, I felt like I was ready to uncover some of the why behind me feeling that and just my tendency to, um, yeah, be stretched too thin and care about others more than myself.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up codependencies, because that was
Mhm.
a concept that when I heard the term, I'm like, "Yeah, I know what that means." It felt like to me it was just clinginess, right? You're
Yeah.
codependent on another person and you're clinging to it. But we did the exercise where all those, like, different phrases and words were on the ground, and you had to stand by the ones that you
I
associated
forgot
with.
about that.
And I was
Yes.
like, "Can we just put them all on top of each other so I can stand on them?"
Yeah.
But I wanna read some codependency tendencies that are much more than just being clingy to another person. And
Yes.
so this is just a quick Google search of codependent tendencies. Difficulty articulating feelings,
Mhm.
enabling behavior, the inability to be alone, a compelling need to control others,
Mm.
difficulty communicating in a relationship,
Yeah.
enmeshed sense of self, emotional and physical abuse,
Mhm.
emotional turmoil, control issues, people pleasing. underlying guilt, fearing abandonment, lack of boundaries, relationship stress, lack of trust. So all of these things that really sound like, damn, that's like my whole personality are codependent tendencies, and
Mm-hmm.
they relate back to some root wound or
Yeah.
multiple wounds from early childhood as we were developing. And
Yeah.
that was so enlightening to me. It was hard coming back too to
Yeah.
like regular life after
Mhm.
Onsite and seeing codependencies everywhere within myself and others. Was that hard
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah, and it was honestly pretty hard on my marriage because I came back very aware of the areas where I was codependent. And um, I say now that I'm a recovering codependent, I feel like I've gotten much better. Um, but my husband was not aware of us being codependent. So he just felt our connection changing
Mm,
and it scared him. Um, And so he's on his own journey and doing his own work, but that's kind of how this works though sometimes. It's like you are changing and you're healing and becoming more aware of the cycles in your life that are unhealthy. And it makes the people around you who have always benefited
mhm,
from you being that way usually nervous or even angry. Thankfully, in my case, my husband was just nervous about it and we talked a lot about it. But yeah, there's so much to this whole healing thing where um, it affects you relationally and even spiritually and just the way you parent, the way you show up in the world. And it kind of feels, you kind of feel like a fish out of water, but like, oh, wait, but I think I'm doing the right thing. I don't think this
mhm.
is supposed to be comfortable.
Definitely. It reminds me of something that like I've heard about just like healing in general. It's
Hmm.
hard to go back and step into those dark times or go back and revisit or reprocess different things. But the difference between doing it now versus the trauma of it actually when it was happening is that we have that choice that we're
Yeah.
doing it. And so that choice is the
Hmm.
empowerment that we have now compared to when whatever it was happened. We did not have a choice. We did not have power in those situations. And so being able to go back and do it now with power, feel like I have the power to step in and knowing I can get out and get to it at a different time. But it like you said, like
Hmm.
addressing those codependencies and one that stood out to me was like hyper independence, right? That's
Oh,
something
yes.
that I struggle with greatly, and, that was one that I'm like, this has been a strength of mine, at
Mm,
periods of time, but actually, it's hampered me from different, ways of growing, and so,
yeah.
looking at that and looking at why that was huge for me, so I'm
Mhm.
curious if you're willing and able to share, what were some of the things that you wanted to address while you were at on-site? What were some of the underlying root things that were
Mm.
were heavy on you?
I think I've always no, I've never um, felt safe. So, like, safe in the world, safe in my house, safe in my relationships, which is part of the reason why I believe I was so codependent because if I can be attuned to others' needs and take care of them, then it makes me feel safer and like I'm in control. And I unfortunately was raised in a family where I there wasn't an adult that was attuned to me, and I felt like I needed to be attuned to. I was a caretaker basically to one of my family members, and it felt like I needed to be attuned to their needs in order to keep myself safe and in some instances alive. Um, So I got that message early on, and that was something that I really wanted to um, break. And it's interesting because when I reflect on it now, I think that it should have brought me a lot of anxiety, feeling like I just was never safe. But for me in my story, it always led to more of that like freeze mode
Mm.
where I'm just depressed. I was depressed all the time. Um, and that's still something that's a part of my story and something that I don't want to say struggle with, because that word just doesn't sound like it's. I don't struggle with depression, if you know what I mean. It's just
Yeah.
something that's a part of my story,
Yeah.
and in some ways, I feel like it's a strength.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I went into Onsite curious about that, and then like, why am I depressed when I feel like I have everything that I need right now? I have a healthy family. I've got a loving husband. I've got two wonderful children. You know what I mean? Like, why is it that this is still there? Um, yeah, I went into Onsite with like questions. Um, and yeah, also just that desire to finally feel safe.
Mm. Wow. Wow. I when you say feel safe, the first thing I think about is like feeling safe in your own body. And
Hmm.
I'm curious how like talking about that, I noticed a couple of sighs. How that like
Hmm.
where'd you feel that in your body?
I always feel it in the upper part of my body. So when I feel unsafe, um, I start to hunch over as a way of, I think, of like protecting my heart.
Yep.
Um, um, yeah, I feel it. Yeah, in my chest, my shoulders, my throat. Something that I learned at Onsite, which was so powerful, was the way that my voice changes in different situations. So Mary, my guide at Onsite, she helped me a lot with that, because I tend to make myself small, um, even with my voice, um, when I just kind of want to go under the radar.
Mm, mm.
Um, And so she would even notice, like, she was talking to me and I would go like this. I would put my hand right here. And she'd be like, put that hand down.
Yeah.
um, like, take a space, be like bigger. And, like in yoga, I love the cactus pose. I'm like, I just
Yes.
want to like go through the world like that with like my shoulders back and like my head up. Like, I just
Yes.
want to have that confidence. But yeah, gosh, there's a lot there, Reggie. Um,
Yeah. I that's something that I think on-site and the work that I've done has been so much of awareness around what's happening in my body. And so
mhm,
as I've like gotten through, processing a lot of the head stuff that happened, like the where my mind is going, I've noticed recently where like the anxiety that I feel today, it's not necessarily here.
mhm,
It's not necessarily in my brain, but my body, my heart will start racing. And I'm like,
yeah,
why is this happening? And it won't be like, "Oh, this deadline, that" like, it's not that anymore. It used to be. It
mhm,
used to be like, "Oh my god, I said something stupid on the podcast, and I'm thinking about that for 3 days." Or just, like, there's an upcoming speech or whatever it may be, like, it's
yeah,
not necessarily that, but my body, like, the body keeps the score. My body's communicating to me something. Something
yeah,
isn't right, and so I've been, monitoring just, blood pressure and heart rate and all these different like
mhm,
how I sleep just to be more aware of what my body's trying to tell me. I think our bodies communicate so much wisdom to us.
mhm,
And I'm glad like you have that awareness around just like covering your throat or shrinking down, like literally. My left side of my body is so tight. And part of it was like I ruptured my Achilles on the right side. And so the left side had to compensate. But even
mhm,
before that, like there was tension all up through this left side.
Yeah.
And I think it's similar to what you said of protecting
Mhm.
the heart. Like my heart's right here.
Yeah.
And if I can brace and be ready for whatever it is, like that is something my body has learned over time. It's hard.
Mhm. It's so hard, but I like what you said, and that's something that I'm continually, like, reminding myself of is that my body is wise.
Mhm.
'Cause a lot of times I think when we, have depression or anxiety or we talk about mental health, we feel like our body is working against us. We feel like trapped or like you said earlier, stuck in this body that is constantly having these different symptoms of, whatever anxiety, depression. Um, but and I know that there's a lot to it, but I think if I choose to reframe that and view my body as wise and telling me something, um, then I can better care for it and care for myself and honor it and have more boundaries and use my voice more. It gets really deep. And so I'm trying to continually tell myself, which is hard, I think, as a woman, and specifically a Christian woman, to tell myself that my body is wise,
Mm.
because I was raised in a way in the church where I was always taught that I'm pretty much here to serve others. And so it became very natural for me to abandon myself and my thoughts and even like not being aware of where I'm in pain,
Mm.
or my posture or how I show up in the world, like just not being aware of it. Just the awareness is um, just wasn't there. So yeah, just being in this phase of life now where I'm choosing to view this body as a gift and as wise uh, feels really empowering.
Wow. Wow. That it felt empowering with you saying that, and
Mm,
I think there's something to, can you speak to, uh, being a Christian woman and how
yeah.
that has impacted your healing journey or impacted some
Mm,
of the things that you've experienced prior to your healing journey?
yeah. Gosh. Um, yeah, I can speak to that. I'll speak to it in a place where I'm very much like still in the midst of figuring it all out. Um, and I'm very comfortable, knowing that I could be doing that until, I die. But I, gosh, I have talking about my childhood and like this need to feel safe, um, in my body, in my environment, in my home. First of all, something to know about me is that I was raised in a mainly it's like between 80 and 85% Hispanic Latino city. Um, and I was at a very small Catholic school, um, preschool through eighth grade, and like very small. And the majority of my teachers were nuns. And it's interesting because a lot of the safety that I felt would be around Hispanics, around Catholics, in church, at Mass. Um, so very early on, I got a narrative that the church would be a safe place for me. And I've always been, I think, just naturally wired to think spiritually. I think I'm an empath. I'm highly sensitive. My brain just kind of goes that way, anyways. Um, so I've always been kind of a seeker, is what I'm saying. Um, so the church had always felt safe for me. But when my parents split up, I wasn't really like encouraged to go and continue in Catholicism. And my friends kept inviting me to different churches. So I went and I almost became Mormon. I would go to Buddhist temple. And then someone invited me to like an evangelical church in the area. And I really liked it. That's where I met my husband. But and I felt safe there because there was so much black and white thinking, that it made me feel like I was in control.
Mm.
Um, and that's a lot of times how like high control religion really thrives, with that like black and white thinking, and you've got to stay in this very, very small box, and you got to have God in that very small box, and you don't really ask questions or become curious. And so really where things started changing for me, because I was like your very stereotypical like evangelical white Christian woman who was married to a pastor. It's like get married, have kids, doesn't matter if we have money or not, God's going to provide for us. We don't need to go to school. We don't need to go to college. Um, and yeah, then our marriage was in crisis. My husband was he was at a mega church outside of Los Angeles. We both were, but he was one of the pastors. And he was so burned out and he was so anxious, so depressed. And the way that it affected me was that the church, whether this is true or not, it felt true. So to me, it is true. The church blamed me for my husband's lack of faith or emotional struggle.
Wow.
It all came back to me.
Mm.
Is your house clean? How are the kids? Are you making dinner for him? Are you making it so he comes home from work and he's not stressed?
Mm.
Um, and so I was so hurt because it felt like, wow, I'm just not enough for any space. I felt like I wasn't enough for my family growing up. I feel like I'm not enough for my husband. I feel like I'm not enough for the church. So it kind of led to this crisis, um, which led us to this very unhealthy, very toxic counselor. Um, and that was the first time I think I learned to use my voice. And I said, I don't want anything to do with this guy, who's using things like scripture and the Bible and the church as a way to like make me feel smaller and like, how would I explain it? Like to lord over me. Um, it just felt like I was getting worse and worse. So I lasted with him for like a month, and then I found a therapist that we worked with for a few years. That yeah, ended up being such an important part of our healing journey and my healing journey. But I think the way that the church and Christianity has affected me, well, first is um, the only reason I say that I'm a Christian is because I love and follow Jesus, but I do not identify with the term evangelical anymore. I don't like to call myself that. I think that the evangelical church, while there is a lot of good there, and I don't want to throw, all the good out, I think that it has led to a lot of oppression and abuse, um, and enabling of abuse. Um, and so it's not something that I want to be a part of. Um, but I still love and follow Jesus. And so it's hard to um, kind of come to terms with, okay, well, I've been taught even to read the Bible a certain way from, men who are white who have translated it. But then I still believe in the teachings of Jesus. So it's affected me in a way that I feel like Christianity breeds codependency. I feel like it's very normal to be codependent when you're a Christian woman. Um, it affected me in a way that I had never like considered going to college or that I had any role outside of my home. And again, this isn't every Christian woman's experience, but this was mine. And also just the way that I viewed myself. I constantly had this inner narrative of I'm a broken sinner, I'm a broken sinner. So tell that to someone who's already like chronically depressed.
Yeah.
Like you just,
The
it's
shame
not
of it
good.
all. Yeah.
The shame, so much shame. So, yeah, so there's that I feel like I continually have to reframe and push against, that I believe not that just humanity is like all broken sinners. I think that we have good in us. And I don't know how to reconcile that with like what scripture says, but I'm okay not having it all figured out. And then just also like going into churches and seeing like, oh man, I do not see a single person of color here. This isn't the place for me. Or talking to people and it's like, do you have a friend, any friends, anyone that you know and love that's in the queer community? And a lot of times they don't, because they keep their world so small and their friend group so small, and it's that narrative of like everything on the outside is bad and wrong.
Mhm.
Um, so I think it really started to hit me once the boys started growing. My boys are 7 and 9. I'm like, how do I want them to be themselves in the world? You know, um, I don't want them to. I have one that already is prone to shame,
Mm.
and I don't want him to go to church where he's, thinking about him being a sinner. I have another son who's very like existential in his thinking. He's constantly thinking about like good versus evil and where do we go when we die and why do bad people, or why do good people do bad things. And I don't need him to go to a church that's talking about hell. Like I just don't.
Mm.
Um, so anyways, there's a lot there, and that's way more than what you asked me.
No, I'm sitting here
Something
soaking it up
I'm
because it's been so good. Yeah.
thanks. It's
No, that
something that I'm just really passionate about.
I can tell. I can tell, and it sounds like you've done a lot of self-reflection around it and really analyzing how it the role that it plays in your life. And I love the fact that you still talk about your love for Jesus while having these questions and these different
Yeah.
views that you have now. And I think one of the things about my healing journey that I've learned is that the black and white thinking, the generalizing, all of that is very harmful, but it was
Mhm.
it was there to serve us at one point, right? If we
Mhm.
look at a group of people and say that, because I was hurt by 2 or 3 of those type of people, all of those people are like that. Or
Yeah.
because this situation turned out like this, all these situations are gonna turn out bad the same way. And
Mhm.
that is not the reality. And
Yeah.
healing gets you to a point of recognizing that gray, that there's gray
Yeah.
in every single thing. And so
Mhm.
oh man, like thank you for sharing that. That
Mm.
is healing to hear. Like it really is. So
Yeah,
uh
it could be both and,
yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Both and exists through everything. Like
Mhm.
absolutely everything. So I'm curious because you spoke so much about it. When you go outside, when you go into nature, right? What do you feel? What
Mhm.
do you sense? What do you look at? What do you hear? What is something that you pick up on?
Okay, so to be honest, um, because I grew up in such a pretty area, um, a lot of times when I go outside here in Texas, I'm like, why did I move here? What am I doing? I need the ocean. I need a mountain. But so there's that. But the more positive part of it is like I am just such a sensory person. I don't know how to say that, but I smell the flowers, the grass, like I just um I hear everything. I like listening to the birds. I know we've talked before of like, I'm just gonna like stop and look at this flower for a second. I don't need to rush past it. And that's one of the things that I love about, because I work with children and I have two of my own, is that they're just like never rushing through life.
Never.
Um,
Yeah.
like you take a 3-year-old on a walk and they are stopping and they are looking at the roly poly
Mhm.
for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It takes you forever to get
Fascinated
somewhere.
about it.
Yes, and there's something where it's like, "Oh, man, that's hard sometimes," but then it's also like, "Wow, okay, let's sit here and look at the roly poly." and
There's
talk
so
about
much
it.
beauty in that.
Yes, yeah. And I love that. So it's just a way of me like feeling like I don't know, when I'm outside, I feel like I could be more present.
Yeah. I think the same for me. Being connected to nature
Mhm.
and just the physical sensations that come to my body, just like recognizing those, like what am I, and trying to, not that you can, but like trying not to let the emotional and the feelings be the loudest part, but like let these
Mhm.
birds be the loudest thing that I hear right now,
Mhm.
and let this
Yeah, so that
breeze be the most thing, the greatest feel that I feel right now.
exactly. So that's kind of the tension that I just said with like, "Oh, I'm outside. Man, I wish I was in California. I wanna go home."
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
then it comes back to centering myself and like, "Oh, wow, what a pretty day.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow, that flower's blooming. It wasn't a few days ago."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Things like that that are important right now and that
Yeah.
help me regulate my nervous system, and all of that. It kinda just silences the negativity that
Definitely.
naturally comes up.
Definitely. Yeah. That's being present. And I think that's where the true peace lies in being present. I want to challenge listeners. If you're listening to this and you're an adult, find a
Mhm.
roly poly or find a caterpillar. Like I haven't seen a caterpillar in years because I'm not on the ground, not looking, I'm not slowing down enough to see
Yeah.
those. And so find a roly poly, find a caterpillar, send me a picture of it. I want to see a
Mhm.
picture of roly polies. I
Yes.
want to wrap this up with a couple more rapid response questions that are a little bit deeper.
Okay,
So,
let's do it.
but I think you're ready for them. With all the things that you're doing right now in any aspect of life, what do you need help with?
I need help remaining attuned to my needs, um, basic needs. Kathleen, have you had water today? Have you gone outside? Have you moved your body? Have you done some yoga? Like just those basic things. Um, I need I need help um, remembering myself.
Mm,
But specifically, like I need to freaking drink more water.
hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a friend, I hear that, and I'll be one of those people that are
Okay,
asking those
thanks,
questions.
Reggie.
Definitely. What is your biggest fear?
Hmm. Something bad happening to someone I love and it being my fault. Um, yeah, and I don't even know if I can go deeper into that, but I know that that's what that is because if I see that in a show or a movie, I spiral. I just
Mhm,
I quickly go into a panic attack, which is not normal for me.
mhm.
So yeah, something bad happening and it being my fault.
Yeah.
Um, I see it in like day to day stuff where I'm like, I have to constantly make sure, it's almost like OCD stuff, constantly make sure that everything is off in the house. I'll leave, then come back and double check again. Because I'm so afraid, not just of something bad happening or like the house being lit on fire, but that it would be because of me. And I think it's because I think deep down, I wonder if I'm really a good person or if I deserve good things.
Wow.
Um, I'm processing that with you right now because I haven't really gone too deep into that, but I know that that's something that I'm very afraid of.
Damn. That's deep.
Mhm.
Let me tell you, you're a
Mm,
fantastic person. You're a great
mm.
person, a great human. I'm so blessed to have you in my life.
Thank you,
I really
Reggie.
am.
I received that. And ditto.
What is one of your superpowers?
Oh gosh. Um, think empathy.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't
You
matter
know
what I
me
think,
pretty
but yeah.
yeah. Well, you know me pretty well.
Yeah. Oh, that's dope. That's dope. Yes.
Yeah,
You
I
have
think
a
empathy.
empathy. Yes. And then last question, what are you living for? However you want to answer that.
Mm, sunshine.
Mm. Sunshine. Yes.
Sunshine, yeah. And, I have people in my life that are just like pure sunshine that
Yes.
I just wanna be around. Um, you are one of them, Reggie.
Oh,
You are
thank you.
sunshine. So it's more to me than, like, being outside and the sun is shining, like, there's something there because I know I struggle with depression, and now it's not so cold here in Texas, we're not stuck inside. Um, there's a lot there, but also just, like, those moments, those glimmers, I just view it as, like, just sun shining on things that were, asleep and are now awake. Um, yeah, I'm really blessed that I have people in my life that feel like that. That's the only way
Damn.
I know how to describe them. It's like, wow, you are just sunshine.
Hell yeah.
I have a neighbor who's become a near and dear friend. And last 2 years ago, I think when I met her, she had just lost her husband. She's our age,
Mm.
um, and she has a 6 year old. And I met them just when they were in the thick of it, in the thick of grief. And they are sunshine. I always call her son, actually, you are sunshine. You are my sunshine boy. Um, and yeah, just being around people like that, and even moments where it just feels like that. I think you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
That's what I'm living for.
Damn.
It makes all the other things just kind of melt away, and you
Yeah.
remember what's important.
I think with your superpower of empathy and who you are sunshine for a lot of people. And
Mm,
so you're living for what you are, which is so dope.
mm,
And I'm thankful for you. And I want to say I'm thankful for Onsite too, for
yeah,
the experience, the healing that that we had, but also for connecting just amazing people. I mean, we had a reunion with some of our folks, and it was so life giving. And
yeah.
I'm just so blessed to have you and all y'all in my life. And so, thank you, Onsite. Thank you,
Mhm.
Kathleen, for
Mm,
blessing me with this conversation, with all the things that you could be doing and all the places that you could be. I appreciate you being here with me, embracing vulnerability.
mm. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And before I forget, how can people reach you if they want to connect, or if you want them to? You don't like, you could say, nah.
I mean, people people can connect with me. I don't know what that means, but sure. I'm a friendly person. Um, yeah, my Instagram handle is Kathleen M. Rowley. Um, it'll probably be in the show notes, right,
Definitely.
Reggie?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's my Instagram. I think my Facebook is the same. Um, yeah, and that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kathleen. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you.
All right. Thank you for joining us for another powerful episode of Vulnerability Muscle. I hope you found inspiration and valuable insights that resonate with you. If you're enjoying this journey of self discovery and empowerment, there are a few ways you can support the podcast. First, make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. If you've been moved by our conversations and the mission of redefining vulnerability, please consider leaving a review. Your feedback not only motivates us, but also helps others discover the podcast. Share your thoughts on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in. And don't forget to spread the word. Follow us on Instagram at Vulnerability Muscle for updates, and you can connect with me personally at Reggie D Ford on all platforms. Visit vulnerabilitymuscle.com for additional resources and upcoming episodes. And remember, embracing vulnerability is strength. Thanks for being a part of the journey. Until next time, stay empowered, stay vulnerable, and keep flexing that vulnerability muscle.